I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Manlius Planning Board meeting for November 18th, 2024. We are hybrid in person and on Zoom online. The first item on our agenda is approval of our minutes from our November 4th, 2024 meeting. Anybody have any comments, or otherwise I'll look for a motion for approval? I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. Minutes made by, or motion made by Aaron, seconded by Arnie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Oh, and Rich is abstaining. Okay. All right, motion carries. Our minutes from November 4th are approved. The next item on our agenda is for John Graves. This is an initial presentation for a 2-lot subdivision, and we will set a date for public hearing if we can. This is 6940 Chef's Corners Road in Syracuse, New York. That's number 041.01-08.1 and 041.01-07.0. So we've got Ted here on behalf of the applicant, and we want to give them a straight update of what you guys want to do with the subdivision.
Yeah, so hopefully it'll be relatively quick, but when John started dealing with the bank on the lending side of things and with the insurances, there were some requirements that they had with respect to the house out front and the entire golf course being on the southern parcel. So when I came in with Tracer Tech, part of what he's looking for funding on that property, some of the existing golf course popped over onto that property. So we just had to get the house out of there and a few pieces of the golf course up in the corner.
What do you mean a few pieces of the golf?
If you open that right by your right hand thing. Yeah. So
Yeah, so this little piece and this little piece want to be added to this parcel. And that one wants to just be separate. Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
so if you open that,
So you want to change not just the lot where the house is, but the lot line of the other.
the lot line is just around the subdivision.
It's a little wonky, but I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense from,
It's a little
A
weird
business
with all the
standpoint.
jagged edges. but
Yeah.
I don't know if you're trying to keep this piece as big as possible.
I think it was, I don't think size had anything to do with it. I think it just had to do with the entire golf course just needing to be on that southern
Why
parcel.
why wouldn't you just come straight across then and have this whole thing go over on there? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, except for I don't know where,
Like if you were to, I'm just curious, if you were to say start here and just go straight across and have this piece then become part of the golf course property as well, then you wouldn't have all those weird lines. And then only that piece would be the tracer tag.
I don't know how relevant that is, or,
I don't either.
Well, just insofar as you try not to make weirdly shaped pieces.
it's kind of weirdly shaped to begin with.
Well, we try and fix it, not make it worse. I don't know if there's like lot size things that they're trying to.
I think originally we had discussed this
We did.
when
Yeah.
Ed originally came in,
Mhm.
and we weren't so keen about keeping the house there, and the bank has now said, don't put the house there, right? So I mean, and the
That's
bank,
easy.
yeah, and-
Yeah.
and the bank is probably saying, keep most of the golf course together too.
This is swampy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Just now.
So is it a bank requirement that you're talking, can you explain to me the bank requirement?
I'll do my best.
Okay,
So when I was originally in here, the original application was for the Trace Effect, that indoor golf.
Yeah.
Deal. But part of that parcel had the house out front on the frontage
Yeah.
there. And part of the golf course was on that property.
on the
So when-
house property?
Yep, and where on the Trace Effect property. So when they were trying to figure out all the financing with the bank doesn't want, from a lending and liability standpoint, they don't want any of the golf course on their property. They just want a clean break between the two.
The bank for the house.
Bank for Trace
No,
Effect.
Tracy,
Uh-huh. And they don't want the house.
they want the house out of the Tracy.
But as of right now, John owns both, or he's gonna own all of it,
He does own all of it. Yeah,
so even though he can still own
yes,
the parcel and the golf course.
Yes,
and then-
yeah.
I think they rent out the house, don't they?
See, I'll just give you my opinion. The applicant has come in with a subdivision and a lot line adjustment. If it meets our code, it may not be exactly what we want or what we want to see, but if it meets our code, it's got the frontage, it's got the square footage, so on and so forth. I think, I mean, my personal view is the applicant can do what he wants to do as long as it's in compliance. And I mean, is it what I would do? I don't know. But it's up to the applicant, not me.
So I don't have an opinion about this, that's for the board to decide, but, if that was all that there was involved, then it shouldn't come to the planning board at all. So the planning board is supposed to look at the order of the development of land, how could this be used in the future? And I'm not saying for this, for every subdivision, otherwise don't even come in, oh, they meet the requirements, see if that's that. So it's supposed to be looked at in terms of how can this land be reasonably developed and then what is good planning for it.
But we're not talking about, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it's similar to some other applications we've had where we said what happens when they sell, if and when they sell 1, 2, or 3 of the properties separately, and then now we've got really,
But isn't the purpose, as I understand it, for parcel one and parcel two, they're existing part of the golf course, correct?
Yes.
Well, and so the idea here is to get all the functioning golf course onto one tax parcel.
Yeah.
And so this may look odd, but it's not part of the golf course. The only reason to draw a line here or somewhere else isn't the primary purpose of doing it.
That was our lot.
Right,
Right.
so I don't,
We're not talking about half acre, quarter acre. This is a large parcel.
but if the point is to get the golf course into one lot or satisfy the bank has something with no golf course on it, and no house on it. I'm fine with that as the sole motivation for tonight.
I know.
Right, and,
You know,
maybe something happens, but then they go carve this out for non-golf course purposes, maybe all fine, put all this into the golf course. Doesn't seem to necessarily achieve anything.
that was at least
Right, fine.
the thought.
sorry, Don, I missed what you said. We were having a conversation, can you repeat?
You know, the board is not allowed to talk during people. That's what you told me.
I missed that.
As I understand is, The bank wants the property for Tracer Tech to be unencumbered by a house and golf course property. And so what parcel 1 and 2 do is include the functioning part of the golf course into tax parcel ending in 8.1 and get them out of parcel ending in 07. So the idea of moving boundaries to put more non-golf land into the golf may or may not make sense, but it doesn't drive it to purpose. I don't see the point of what that gains if we have kind of neater property lines. What does that, other than some aesthetic concern perhaps? The
Well,
nature of this
well,
land
wait.
being wet, having no road access seems it's not like you're creating some future subdivision problem that I can perceive. But you are achieving what a bank is requiring, and then do consolidate the golf course on one tax parcel, which seems to make logical sense. And not, without including a big hunk of non-golf property.
Well, the bank is financing this piece.
Right, Tracer Tech, but they want that
And,
clean.
and all this, just kind of goes like that. If you just go like that, then actually your client's better off, because way less of his property is encumbered by a mortgage. And all this is unencumbered.
Jamie, I'm not gonna disagree with what you just said, but we aren't the applicant. And
No,
if
but
the
we're
applicant,
throwing out, suggestions.
okay, but this is what the applicant asked us for. It's kind of a yes or, in my mind, it's a yes or no vote. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? If we start making changes what the applicant wants, I think we're getting beyond what our role is here.
And I think from a planning perspective, again, for future land use and ownership, I think it's a cleaner, I mean, what's even gonna be done back here and accessing that and as opposed,
To
have it way up
part of
here.
this.
yeah, to have
Parcel
it part of
one.
the golf course parcel.
Can you pull up the aerial? I'm just curious. So I disagree slightly. I feel like the applicant is coming in and has done a great job of showing us something that meets the requirements in the code. The front lot, by having it be the right square footage for the RA zone, the septic, the municipal access, and the other stuff, the cover letter explained it all very clearly. And I think that, yes, this meets the requirement. I think that, at least for myself, when an applicant comes in with a project like this, it's an opportunity for all of us to share what we think about from a planning perspective. We've got our engineer here who can advise us, and the attorney that can advise us. And it's an opportunity to say, we have half a dozen more brains to look at this and come up with ideas. And if the owner likes any of them, and he's privy to a lot of knowledge with financing and acres and dollars and all these things that he's dealing with on his own, and he's demonstrated that he's a responsible applicant, then I think that putting these ideas out there for him to consider, or for you to take and consider, is a very useful time in the meeting. I would have no problem approving this as it is. I think it could be improved upon, but I think that it meets the requirements. I think, yeah, if it were me, I would either cut it off right here or cut it off right here. But then we have to look at if we were being proposed, shown that project is proposed, what would we comment on there? Because there's no reason for you to come back unnecessarily.
And like I said, John came up with this. It makes sense. He owns both properties.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's buying a chunk off of someone else and
Right.
just trying to minimize his purchase from that standpoint. There are no, it's all woods over there.
It's
I am-
Smoky Woods, I think,
Right.
right?
So-
So here, thank you, Lisa. If, from my perspective, I think that from a land development standpoint, it would be far more likely for this property to be desirably developed as some sort of extension to the golf course facility than to the indoor driving range facility, right? And should they want to have another hole maybe that's out, or green or a tee box or something that's out here that takes advantage of the natural wetland area and whatever, like they could do that at some point, right? Like, I don't know, I'm not really a developer, but, I think that this belongs a little bit more with that than it does with that. And from a thinking down the road point of view, from like a sales perspective, if you wanted to sell one or the other of them, that as a potential buyer, this lot would be kind of weird, because now all of a sudden you're paying taxes on this and doing, you know, you have this, and do you have anything you have to do with it? It's just this weird thing. But as part of, you know, the golf course property, I think it makes more sense. So that's just, but like I said initially, I don't have a problem with it. I think it checks all the boxes. It's just a little weird.
Do you know if John had any, reasoning to draw it this way, other than just kind of coming as close as possible to the outline of the golf course?
As I understand it, it's just how minimally invasive he could be to get the objective met, to get the golf course components off of, I'll just call it the Tracer test lot.
It's a logical first step when you're thinking through something like this. It's a logical first step when you're faced with that requirement
when
by the
you don't
bank. You're
have-
like, okay,
And there's no plans, I mean, there's,
great.
We see this often, where then it comes back and now someone buys the golf course property and it just gets a little, you know, if eventually they want to develop something. Tracer Tech wants to develop something else. I don't see necessarily why they would, but I think, like, I agree with Aaron and Jamie that I think from a planning perspective, it would be good to make it more streamlined, and this land would make much more sense to be part of the existing golf course than the Tracer Tech. So,
Yeah, I just, give my thoughts. This is what the applicant asked us for. Is this something that we can approve or not? If they want to come back later, modify this subdivision and cut a different piece out or whatever, so be it, let them do it.
but he might, but if he sells this golf course off, then it's not stuff.
But what if
No,
they decide,
he's mortgaging a very funky piece.
Yeah,
It seems to me that he might want to think about something different.
yeah.
He's
I
been
mean,
a
that-
long-term owner of the property. Do you think he did this without thinking?
I think that when you're faced
I
with,
mean,
put the golf course all in one piece and get rid of the house, that you come in and do the simplest.
for a person who's probably owned this for a long time, you know, I might say, well, they asked John what he was thinking. Yeah, to me, the idea of a man who's, or any individual who's been handling this development, this major project, which is going to cost somewhere north of $5 million at least, would have said, oh gee, I got a 10-minute view, I'll do this, and not have thought about it larger.
Did the bank,
Which astonished me, I guess. Maybe it happened.
did the bank approve this subdivision?
the fact, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how all that works.
see if they,
It's not yet, give me a few more
if
years.
they want to come in at a later date and modify this, fine. So be it, this is what they're asking us to approve or not approve.
Well, I think it's worth asking the owner. If
Yeah.
you're comfortable with that, saying, hey, during, you know, you can watch the video of the meeting or whatever, say, hey, did you think about this? Would this benefit you more? Like,
I think there might be a reason why he's doing this.
and if there is, great, and that's fine.
No,
it's
I mean, the
approvable.
tracer he has, so when you're basically putting stuff on the tee and making a tee shot.
And it may be I don't know,
He
it may
might-
be a value thing,
He
maybe
might
certain
try and
X
keep
number
this
of
one open
acres,
For the tee shots.
you know, for,
Dollars
control right.
invested in-
or
If
ownership.
he's-
That's what I told him.
Yeah,
I don't know, I mean, he might, there's a reason why he's trying to keep these two connected,
Well, and it could be to do with the financing. It could be
not to keep
Right.
the two connected.
so many acres makes the dollar loaned per acre less.
I
That'd be
think we're
pretty
so
unusual.
far out of our depth here. This is ridiculous. There's no reason for us to be having this conversation. If we were all architects and all had degrees in this kind of thinking, it would be a conversation worth having. We don't. I have a degree in music. I gotta tell you, this makes perfect sense to me. It's legitimate, it's legal, it conforms to the code. Is it pretty? No, the golf course isn't pretty, the Tracer Tech thing isn't pretty, but together, it makes sense. So if John thinks this is the way to go, God bless him, let's get it done and get something out there instead of just leaving it hang. I don't think we should be fixing things, and every single one of you has said, well, I don't know what the man is thinking, but maybe he's thinking is, if you're that desperate to know, ask him. It's not our job to ask him why you do it, it's just to ask him, is it okay with us? Yeah, it's okay. Would you do it differently? Perhaps. I would leave it just the way it is and be done with it.
Is that a motion? I agree with, we have to do a
We
public
have to do a
hearing.
public hearing.
Yeah, I agree with Arnie, that's how I look at this, that this is what he's asked for. Doesn't comply, yes. Why are we messing around it? Let it go. If he wants to come back later and change it, so be it.
I think we're ready for a public hearing.
I agree.
Valerie, what do
I
you think?
agree.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, we need to have a date for the public hearing. I disagree a little bit in the fact that it comes to the planning board for a reason, so I don't think we should just take everything that comes to us, again, that was drawn up. But it's worth asking
Yeah,
the applicant, and they're coming back anyway for a public hearing, so it's just worth running by them and explaining, you know, why it is a little bit wonky, but again, it complies. So that we've had another subdivision that we made a suggestion, but it's their land, they complied, so they did what they wanted. So I think we can set a date for the public hearing.
I agree.
Will he be here for that?
Depends when you said it.
Well, it would be good, because if, and just in case any public.
I mean,
come up and
yeah,
have
I'm being
questions.
facetious. He can, either I can have him or his daughter or his sister. I mean, someone in their group can
For
certainly be.
December
I
9th.
saw it was notarized in Florida, so I didn't know if it was like away.
He is, but he comes back quite regularly, so.
Okay, so to wrap up, I know I said a bunch of different things, but I agree that I think it's approvable because it meets the requirements. I also think that it's important that as the sounding board for some of this stuff, we say, hey, it might make more sense from a planning perspective if you were to consider a couple of these other options. And he says, well, that sounds great, but I can't because of X, Y, and Z, or I really want it this way because of X, Y, or Z, then as far as I'm concerned, fine.
Mhm.
But it's worth throwing it out there. Say, hey, here's some feedback. Would you consider? Have you thought of? Right? I don't feel like this is a hard approve or not approve thing. I think that it's here's some feedback. And take it, and maybe it's helpful, or maybe there's some like reason with dollars to acres, like, I don't know. But Doug, do you have anything to say? I know that you guys are supposed to ask him, but I'm really curious.
Not necessarily.
No, I mean, engineering wise, we reviewed it all, I mean.
Okay,
I think
so
we beat this horse.
I'll take a motion to set the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to set a public hearing for when, Lisa?
December 9th.
December 9th?
Second that.
Motion made by Rich, second by Arnie. All in favor for public hearing December 9th?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Public hearing December 9th.
Thank you.
And I think you've heard some feedback, so
Thank you.
I have,
if you want to share that.
yeah, they're down into the nuance stuff as far as building, yeah, kitchens.
Like,
start next
summer?
Huh?
Will they build it like start next year? late
No,
next
they
year?
wanted, well, and we're still waiting on the last of the feedback on the Speedies, the wastewater. permit.
Yeah.
So they wanted to, they were hoping to get started beginning of the winter, at least get the road in, staging area, maybe even get the pad for the building, but we've done some mechanical stuff, kitchen stuff, just windows, I think.
We'll see you December 9th.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks.
See ya.
Okay, the next item is under other business for 7 Pines, building 3 and 4. This came before us before for a zone change, which the town board approved. And if you remember, we initially did a zone change to RM. And correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa. Initially did a zone change for RM for the other buildings, and the building 3, 4 was held off. And now that is almost, is the zone change complete?
Yes.
Okay, so it's now RM as well, so they are submitting plans for that building, which really nothing is changing, but we do need to review that, but Doug spoke with the
Yes, so I,
developer.
yeah, so I spoke with the developer, Ryan Benz, and told him that there were some things he had to clean up on his drawings, but I said I would
And
pass,
make them larger.
yeah, so people could read them. I told him that I would, he said he would do that. I believe the deadline is this Thursday to get things in. He would endeavor to do that. I told him that I would pass along his request to be placed on the next coming public hearing date so that he could keep this moving along. And I told him I would get back to him. I said, you know, I can't promise you anything. There's a list of 2 or 3 little things we talked about with the working group. We talked about dumpster access, and we talked about parking access and some other things along those lines. And he said that he would work on getting that. If we could set up the public hearing, it's a little bit backwards. Usually we have him come in, give a presentation. But we could, if you were so inclined to set a public hearing, you could keep a public hearing open or closed or whatever you feel. It doesn't mean that you have to make a decision the next time he comes in.
You've also got an extra week in there, don't we? You've got 3 weeks before the next planning board.
And I spoke with them this morning as well. I
Okay,
called Ryan and just explained that, just to show you guys, these were the drawings. So you can't really read anything. So I explained that we want full-size drawings of the site and of the building 3, 4. So he understands now and will
he
get
seemed
that
to be,
in by the,
he seemed to be a reasonable enough guy.
yeah, it's all
We'll
there.
work
It
with him on
just needs
other
to be something we can look at and thoroughly review. So, but I didn't want to wait all the way till, then there's, we've got a break till January, so that we can set the date for the public hearing, they'll be on for that
So-
meeting.
I'll make a motion for a public hearing, again, December 9th.
Yep.
Okay, motion made by Rich,
Second.
second by Arnie, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries for the public hearing for 7 Pines, building 3, 4 on December 9th.
Lisa, can you remind everyone of what we've got for public hearings on the 9th?
Yes, so we have, the one we just did for 7 Pines, we just did one for the 2-lot subdivision on Sheps Corners, and then we have, the east side, west side properties, the mental health facility on Genesee Street.
Right.
Genesee Street,
The children's there,
the children's therapy, yes. Sorry, we have a few going over there.
yes, we do.
We set that date at the last meeting.
The last meeting. Which one is there?
That was Jennifer Grassman.
There, that's where
Yeah, I think all that was left really was the sound, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's not, I'm thinking it's a
Greg addressed,
Oh, no, no, I'm trying to figure out.
Greg addressed the do not enter.
And then do not enter
Yeah,
on number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And did they agree to that?
Yeah, yes, they
You
did.
buying it?
Yeah, Greg presented it as his idea.
Yeah, they're gonna do not enter out onto Route 5, so it'll just be an entrance, not an exit.
Okay. I will say this, that's a good example. That I am very concerned about us making decisions that take property rights away from property owners. And right now, that is a fully right in, right out, left, whatever, on Route 5. It's a complete entrance. And when we start to push to say we want it to be like right in, right out, or we want to minimize the use of that, we're taking value away from that property. And I'm very concerned that we don't go down that road too far, modifying people's property rights. So,
Well, that's subjective.
You might be adding value.
Yeah, we made it as a suggestion,
doubt
they came back and proposed the do not enter
Okay,
into the
yeah, we-
temporary sign as well, so.
okay,
But for you to say that it's taking value away from the property is subjective, because it's worth whatever somebody's willing to pay for it.
well, I'm gonna tell you, I'll tell you right now, that a fully functional entrance has a greater value for that property than a right in, right out, or whatever it is that we
This wasn't
discussed.
anything formal with like you.
Okay,
This
I've been in real estate a long time.
Yeah, this was just a suggestion for them for like, rather than like a no left.
Right, as long as
turn.
they've agreed to it, then I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying, we gotta be careful that we don't get too far down that road.
Okay. Anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
A second.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Teamwork.